Please join me, Tami.
Thank you.
In case you missed it during the Torah reading, Tami Gottlieb is Daniel Edwards' cousin, and she is also currently the chairman of the board of Kibbutz Kfar-Aza, the kibbutz that was attacked on October the 7th first, and that suffered terrible, terrible losses during that day. And I thought it would be very insightful and interesting for us to hear from Tami since she's here on this visit. Is this your first trip to North America?
No,
You've been...
I've been many times.
No, but since October 7th.
Since October 7th, it's the first. Oh, sorry, since October 7th.
It's your first trip to North America.
To North America, yes.
So,
Sorry, I was in the States in March.
You were in the States in March.
Yes.
So, we're meeting you for the first time at Beth Tikvah. We're thrilled you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Were you born in Israel? You make Aliyah?
First of all, I'd really like to thank you for inviting me to speak and thank the whole congregation for a wonderful moving service. It was really moving. I think you can hear it in my voice. And thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. I was born in Jerusalem in 1957, so I'm a Tzabarit, born and raised in Israel. And I basically come from the economic side of things, investment banking and things like that. And over the years, I came to sit on the board of many different companies in many different areas, including many years ago, kibbutzim who have economic corporations, companies, to work with them, advise them, and sit on their boards. And I became extremely affiliated and fond and have a very huge spot for kibbutzim, even long before October 7th. And I think until 2021, for 9 years, I was the chairperson of Kibbutz Shfaim, which is just adjacent to Herzliya, for those of you who know. And after I finished that, somebody approached me and said that Kibbutz Kfar-Aza was looking for a chairperson. And I decided that this was something that I wanted to do, and I applied, and there were other people who applied for that position, but I was chosen, and in April of 23, 6 months before October 7, I began my job as the chairperson of Kfar-Aza.
Just so people understand, I thought this was fascinating. I don't know much about the organization of kibbutzim, but they're established as corporations. Correct me if I say anything wrong, Tami, but just like a synagogue, they're established as corporations. But I asked Tami, but you're not a member of the kibbutz? You're chairman of the board, but you don't live on the kibbutz? And she said, no. We learned many years before that it is a mistake to have members of the board also...
The kibbutz. Members of the kibbutz.
Members of the board of the kibbutz also living on the kibbutz. Why? Because then every lunch and dinner and breakfast, they're getting harassed by other people. I see all the members of the board here going, yes, that is what it's like. They're getting harassed, and it's a healthy separation to have people on the board who don't live on the kibbutz, but are outside people who have experience, professionals. You heard Tami sits on the board of many companies, so she's a serious corporate leader, and comes in and passionately, because of a strong feeling inside of her of volunteerism and helping build Zionism in the country, to help, even as an outsider, to chair the board of the kibbutz and to help it with its finances and all of the complicated decisions that the kibbutzim have to make. So I thought that was just fascinating that they bring in outside people. Maybe we should learn from that in a synagogue as a very interesting corporate model. It also, I hope you heard, like, Tami doesn't have to do this. This is something she chose to do because she's a Zionist and she feels passionately about the role of kibbutzim in the country and helping them to flourish.
Absolutely, yes. That's
so
correct.
you take over at Kibbutz Kfar-Aza 6 months before October the 7th. Some of us have been to Kibbutz Kfar-Aza, most of us have not. So for people who don't know anything about Kibbutz Kfar-Aza, tell us about what it is like, what it was like on October the 6th.
Kibbutz Kfar-Aza was, and I have to say still is, but we'll talk about that a bit later, a very, very strong kibbutz in what the region that we call Kfar-Aza, or surrounding Aza region, but also in Israel. It's on October 6th, there were about 950 people living in Kfar-Aza, a very flourishing kibbutz economically and from a community perspective. And there was a 3-year waiting list for people who wanted to join Kfar-Aza and come and build their home there. I don't know if you know this, but in kibbutzim, most of the kibbutzim in Israel today are what we call mufrat, privatized, where the economic assets remain common to everybody, but the houses and the personal property has been transferred to the members of the kibbutz. There are still, I'd say, about a third of the kibbutzim in Israel, usually the stronger kibbutzim, who remain absolutely communal, where basically the people don't own the houses that they live in, and they transfer their salary to the kibbutz, and we'll talk maybe later about what happened after the 7th of October. It's a big difference between those two kibbutzim, but it was a very flourishing, happy kibbutz.
So Kfar-Aza is a privatized kibbutz.
It's a privatized kibbutz. It's still a very much kibbutz. The houses are, you own the house and you earn your own salary and you decide where you want to work, and you work and you get your salary, but everything else is
shared
communal.
property.
Shared, right. Is shared property. So, like I said, economically also it's a very flourishing kibbutz. Kibbutz Kfar-Aza owns the majority in a company called Kafrit, which is a very big company that makes raw materials for the plastics industry. Actually, Kafrit has a plant in Kfar-Aza, but it also has about 7 plants worldwide, including 2 in Canada. One which was just bought a year and a bit ago, and agriculture and real estate development and a whole bunch of economic activities. And the people in Kfar-Aza used to say that life in Kfar-Aza and in the region is 95% Gan Eden and 5% Gehenom. And they always used to say that, and just 3 weeks after I came into office, there were missiles and the kibbutz was evacuated for 3 days, something very common, and they didn't know if they would be able to have Leila Seder and go back to have Leila Seder in the kibbutz, and they did, and it was just another round that they had gotten used to living like that.
So every once in a while, life would be interrupted,
absolutely,
always by rockets launched from Gaza.
Yes, that's the 5% hell.
The 5%
The 5% Gehenom. And really, the other 95% of the time, the it really was very close to heaven, and everything that the community did and got, and the area that they lived in.
And how would you define the people politically? Were these religious Zionists? Were they secular? Were these left-wingers? Were these right-wingers? I mean, you're speaking about 1,000 people who choose to live at the border between Israel.
On the border. They are the border. Yeah. It's very interesting because you can go into the election and see for every little town or kibbutz or whatever how people voted. And it's a secular kibbutz. It's a secular kibbutz. I think they started a shul there maybe 6 years ago, and it didn't go down well with everybody. But then there is a shul in Kfar-Aza. Most, I would say, maybe 80% of the people are middle of the road, middle to the left of the road. But it would maybe not surprise you, or maybe it would surprise you to learn that I guess about 20% of the people, much more right wing. Whatever that may mean to anybody, just based on the voting pattern. But it is a secular, mostly secular community. I heard a very interesting lecture just 3 days ago that spoke about all the music that came out of kibbutzim, and basically it said when the people came at the beginning of the last century, the previous century, and they came and they became from religious to secular, so they had to they gave the Chagim a different sort of meaning. Okay, Shavuot is less Chag Matan Torah, giving the Torah, but more Chag HaAsif, collecting the fruit of the land. And each and every, that's not the purpose of our talk tonight. So these are people who are very Masorti, Yehudi, Israeli, but a very new kind.
Proud Jews, proud Israelis.
Proud Jews, proud Israelis.
But not religious.
And proud kibbutzniks.
And proud kibbutzniks.
Yes.
Did you think, even for a second, maybe I shouldn't do this? It's right next to a cage filled with lions. It's a mistake for me to get involved.
No, I did not. And in fact, when I was interviewing for the job and I was telling my friends and family that this is what I want to do, and they said to me, "Are you crazy? Why are you going there? It's dangerous. It's on the border. They have missiles once in a while." And I looked at people and I said to them, "Excuse me, this is all the more the reason to do it. It's an hour and a quarter from Tel Aviv. Tens of thousands of people live in that area, and you're talking to me disassociated as if we're talking about, I don't know, the war in the Ukraine. It's pardon my language, it's crazy." So I think that was all the more reason. People who don't know the area, who don't know the kibbutzim, who don't know the people, I say to them, these are people who get on the train at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, come to Tel Aviv, go to the theater, go to a show, go have dinner, take the train back. These are, it's not traveling to Toronto, 15 hours travel or something like that. So
right.
No, I did not think about that, but other people did. They said, we say in Hebrew, "Ma ibadet sham?" What did you lose there? Why are you going there? What did you forget there? So, yeah.
What can you tell us about what happened to the kibbutz on October the 7th and why Kfar-Aza was targeted in particular?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say it was targeted in particular. It's definitely one of the 5 kibbutzim that were the hardest hit. October 7th, 6:29 in the morning, they started the missiles and the sirens, and for the first few minutes they thought, oh, okay, fine, again, we'll go into it was Simchat Torah, a big deal, Simchat Torah in Kibbutz Kfar-Aza. I'll show you afterwards, they had a special event every Simchat Torah, to do with kites, kite flying, and they thought, and 15 minutes later, I got a call. I was not in Kfar-Aza, in Kfar-Saba in my home, and I got a call from the community manager, a woman named Orit, and she was whispering, and she says to me, Tami, there are terrorists in the kibbutz outside our windows, and I say that again, and she's whispering, and anyway, it became apparent in the first 15 minutes that this was absolutely not a replay of previous rounds that they were used to. And I think the next half hour, people were saying, okay, well, the army's going to come soon, and they were WhatsApping in about 10 different groups of WhatsApp groups that they have, and if you read, I sometimes take out my phone, I scroll back to October 7th and 8th, and I start reading, and then I can't go on reading. Some of the WhatsApps are from people who are no longer with us, and the first thing was an amazement. Why isn't the security head of the kibbutz answering, and the people in charge of security, why aren't they answering, and where is the army, and why is nobody, what's going on? And these are people who were killed the first 10, 15 minutes of, this went on all through the day, and really, the army, nobody showed up in Kfar-Aza until the afternoon of Shabbat. And even then, the first people were taken out of the kibbutz, I'd say very late at night between Shabbat and Sunday, and most of them on Sunday and also into Monday. And this is unthinkable, anybody who's been to a kibbutz, it's not such a big place. And it turns out at the end that the terrorists had come in, the Hamas, and then afterwards other people from Gaza just come in through 3 different places. And the most astounding thing was that they didn't come, do what they did, and go. There were waves. They kept, these left and others came back, and this went on for close to 2 days.
My understanding, Tami, the reason I asked you about why Kibbutz Kfar-Aza was targeted, my understanding is that Hamas had maps of Kibbutz Kfar-Aza, and those maps were likely drawn from Gazans who had worked in that area, and they could show the terrorists exactly what street to go on. Like when they arrived, they knew exactly where to go.
Yes.
And where everybody lived. Is that true?
We think that is the case because in the office of Kfar-Aza there was found a big map, and next to each house in Arabic was the name and who the person was. And they knew exactly where the weapons were kept and where army people that served in the army kibbutz members were. So yes, we now think and know that this was in fact the case. It's not so surprising because over the years, many people from Gaza came to work in Kfar-Aza and go back. So yes, this is apparently what happened. And the other thing is, Kibbutz Kfar-Aza is literally it is the border. That is the border. There is not even half a kilometer between the border and Kfar-Aza. It's right there. And it turns out, unfortunately, that it was extremely accessible. I don't know if you guys know, but the Israeli government spent about 5 billion shekels, more than that, building what they called the michshol. Anyway, it was like a big fence that 80% of it was underground with sensors. And this was supposed to be the state of the art, and this, together with the tatzpitaniyot, you've heard about them, the girls who were sitting and watching the screens, was supposed to save. And at the end of the day, what happened is like something from the 19th century. They just came across, cut the wires, with carts and donkeys and motorcycles and buckeyes.
Yes.
Gliders.
Hand gliders.
Hand gliders, yeah. So, yes?
That day, these waves kept coming, and you told me the last terrorist was found at Kfar-Aza
on Wednesday morning.
So just if everybody could keep in their mind, the attack started 6:30 a.m. on Saturday. The last terrorist was found at Kfar-Aza days later. That's how long it took for the army to get the situation out of control. When did you finally internalize the devastation? How much this place that you invested your heart into, when did you finally internalize the degree of devastation?
From a cognitive point of view, I think within a few days we realize the devastation, but from an emotional point of view, you really don't realize the depth and the breadth of the devastation. It took us a few weeks. First of all, from a physical point of view, it took about a week to start going back there afterwards and to see what had happened, and it was unfathomable in one visit. You know, you see something else, and then you see something else, and you see inside the houses and outside the houses and the public buildings, and it took a very, very long time. And from the people point of view, it took more than 2 months, because first of all, it took some of the people took a long time to identify them. It was absolute chaos. Just to give you an example, there is a family, the Kutz family. The father, the mother, the daughter, and 2 sons were murdered. The whole family. But when they took the bodies out, this is not to blame anybody. It was absolute chaos. So they just put the bodies. So they took the bodies away. So some members of that family were identified maybe a week later or a few days later, but some members of the family were put in another row, all these 1,300, I think, bodies from that area, including the Nova Party bodies, were taken to a place called Shura, and it took a very long time to identify. And I just want to say I made a very difficult decision. We had people from the kibbutz who went in and saw people who were dead, and then their bodies were removed. And we decided to meet with these families and to say to them, because it wasn't official, nobody official came to say, okay, we've identified them, they're dead. But people didn't know what happened to their families. Were they kidnapped? Were they dead? What happened to them? So we took it upon ourselves, the people from the kibbutz who went in and saw, unfortunately, somebody dead. We called the family, we sat with them, and we said, this is not an official announcement, but we need you to know that so-and-so, Nira or Yossi or whoever it was, has seen the dead body. And I mean, just think about it. It was very, very, very difficult.
How many people were murdered at Kfar-Aza?
64 people were murdered in Kfar-Aza. From most of the kibbutzim, it's not the high. We don't have the highest number that was kidnapped, but we have the highest number that were murdered.
And how many kidnappings?
19 kidnapped, and unfortunately, still 5. We still have 5.
And you said the picture of one is outside.
One of them, Keith Siegel, is right out here on your table. And we had another tragedy. I think you may remember this, where three of the hostages survived, and they put up a sign, hostages and whatever, and mistakenly, when they came out, the army shot them. This was in December, and 2 of those, Alon Shimri's and Yotam Chaim, 2 of them were from Kfar-Aza. So obviously they did not return. We still have 4 families with 5 hostages, because the Berman family have twin boys, Gali and Zivi Berman, who are 26 years old, and they were kidnapped, but they're not held together in Gaza. So the 5 hostages belong to 4 families who are still there.
These are not just names to you. These are people you knew, people you worked with.
Mm-hmm.
You must have gone to how many funerals?
Well,
in those days?
The funerals started happening, and I posted on Facebook at the time. One of the things that I think was the most, it was the funeral calendar of one day of Kfar-Aza, and I think that day had 6 funerals, and the day before had 5 or 8, and one of the anguishes that people in the kibbutz had was these are their friends, they're really people that they grew up with, and they can't go to all the funerals. There was absolutely no way. And at the beginning, they came to us and said, why is this being done this way? Why don't they space the funerals? Because people didn't really realize, again, the depth and the breadth of the situation. So I went to many funerals, and everybody went to many funerals, but you couldn't go to all the funerals, so we couldn't. And just to say something, in a sense, we're just finishing the month of all the yortzites of the year. And I went to many of the yortzites, not all of them. And I think in a sense, these were the real funerals now, a year later, because everybody was in shock at the funerals themselves. Nobody really understood what was going on. People were, how shall I explain?
They were in shock.
I'll explain it to you. Bad things happen. They happen to all of us, and people get killed, and people die in road accidents, and terrible things happen to people. And they grieve, and they're sitting in their homes and do the Shiva, and then slowly, they go back to their lives. These people came out of Kfar-Aza with nothing. And the first few weeks are absolutely survival. My hearing aid, my glasses, my dentures, my medication, what am I going to do? Had nothing, no home. Where am I going to live? Where am I going to be? And in the midst of all this, you have to bury your dead. Where are you going to sit Shiva? Just organizing where to sit Shiva in Shfaim and in the kibbutz where they were vacated to. So it was like a daze, a real daze. And we all saw in the yortzites this past month that was the real funeral. In a sense, I can't say closure, but they brought their loved ones to rest
They had
a
the
year
space,
later.
right? They had the emotional capacity to speak of their loved one.
And the other thing you have to realize is that obviously, I think just one person was buried in Kfar-Aza a year ago. Since then, just one grave has been moved back to Kfar-Aza, but they had to decide where they're going to bury their people. And I was saying to the rabbi before, what is the meaning of the word kibbutz? Kibbutz is a kvutza, is mekubatz, it's to be together. And this kibbutz then and now is displaced and dispersed all over. And for people who grew up all together in the same place, in a small place, okay, how does this work? And I also said to the rabbi that the thing is, nobody has ever written a manual for anybody how to manage, how to help, how to behave following a tragedy like the tragedy of October 7th. So you make a lot of mistakes. You have to do it while running forward and think about things that you never thought about. What was your responsibility in telling somebody, we're very sorry, we know your husband has died, but then the person has to wait 2 weeks to get an official notice and to have a funeral and to bury them. And you have to realize that when the army came to some people after a few weeks and said, hey, your loved one is kidnapped in Gaza, people were so happy, as if you would have told them, you know, they won the lottery or the best thing that could happen. Can you imagine what a situation is when you're happy to learn that your loved one is kidnapped in Gaza? It's unfathomable, I think.
I'm curious to know, just as a rabbi, you're dealing with people, you're in charge, and you have dozens and dozens of families who are going through the worst traumas imaginable, and they're all turning to you for their, to probably let out emotions, for help. What do we do? Where do we go? Where's this? Where's that? How do you maintain your ability to be calm and lead and helpful when you yourself have just lost all of these people that you were friends with? How did you hold it together?
Well, thanks for the question, and thanks for caring about that. I feel this is not supposed to be about me, but it's supposed to be about them. But yes, on the one hand, it's understandable that people, you know, sometimes take it out on you and vent to you and whatever towards you. But contrary to common thought, I'm human too. So at times it is and was very, very difficult. And I think I had a really, really low point, because October, November, December, really you work on as if you're a robot. You just have to make decisions, and you have to do, and you have to decide, and you have to do so many things. Came December, January, it was very, very difficult. They were out of the trauma room and just beginning to realize that this is not something that is going to go away in a month or in 2 months or in 3 months. And the uncertainty, what is going to happen? How long is this going to take? What is my life going to look like? So December, January were very difficult. And I met in one of the meetings that we had with other kibbutzim, I met I love him dearly, Raz Dior. He used to be the CEO of Kibbutz Kfar-Aza, not the chairperson, a while ago. And we spoke. He's the CEO of Kibbutz Nir Oz, which is, Nir Oz had and still has the highest number of hostages in Kfar-Aza and in the area. And every week or 2 weeks, they get notification that one of them has been murdered in captivity. And Raz and I were talking, and he looked at me and he said to me, listen, you have to understand, whatever you and I do, we're going to do our best, and our best is going to be good. But whatever we do, in the end, they're all going to throw rotten tomatoes at us. And sometimes somebody says a sentence to you and it just, everything drops into place. And I said to myself, you know, he's right. And I have to decide, do I want to say to them, you know, we, the people I worked with, brought you so far, give me a nice bouquet, a plaque, I'll be a friend forever, and I'll go do something else because this is just all too much. Or stay because you love these people, you care. It's unthinkable to me to leave them at this time. And then you have to take into account that people, it's never going to be that all the people are happy and all the people agree, and they're still going to vent out all their emotions and frustrations and anger towards me and the other people who work with them. And since then, it's been much better. I see it as a mission. I see it as something that I want to do. I should say that right now, because of the real frustration of after the month of the Yortzites, and most of the community is moving to a temporary place in Kibbutz Ruchama in the north, so there are periods when they're very, very verbally abusive towards themselves, in between themselves. And this is very difficult, and the expectation from management, from us, is, you know, sometimes to step in and be like a kindergarten teacher and say, hey, don't you say that, don't you? No, we have to help them self-overcome this, self-regulated, at the end of the day, realize that the strong community that they were before, they still are. And just as I have to, and other people have to understand that they vent their emotions and frustrations and anguish towards us, they do it towards each other. And there's a lot of psychological work being done with the people who work with the people of Kfar-Aza, but the people of Kfar-Aza itself. It's a huge network of support and care, and it's a lifeline.
What can you tell us about the future of Kfar-Aza? And is there anything that we can do to help all of the displaced families that you're in contact with? Let's start with the first question. What's the future of Kibbutz Kfar-Aza? I mean, you go there and it's like visiting a concentration camp. You see burned buildings, memorial pictures everywhere. It's a very sad place. Do you think that it could ever flourish again?
Yes, I'm very optimistic. I don't even say I think. I know it will. And now, a year later, I think a lot of people realize that. We think to ourselves, and we used to say, if between 50 and 70% of the population go back to Kfar-Aza, that would be a huge success. And I think we're going to be there. Kfar-Aza is one of the 5 kibbutzim that can't go back for at least 2.5 years, because of the devastation there. So for these 5 kibbutzim, the government has built, we chose, the people of Kfar-Aza chose where they want to go, and they chose a kibbutz called Kibbutz Ruchama, an existing kibbutz. It's in the south, it's near Sderot, but on the right side of Sderot, not on the wrong side of Sderot. And just these past 2 weeks, 185 families signed up to move to Ruchama, which is not all of the population, but it's a large part of the it's a very substantial part of the families, and you see and you see people who said, "I'm never going to come back. I'm never going to move to Ruchama. I'm never," and they're coming back. Defying us and the army and everything. About 10 families have moved back to Kfar-Aza, even though it's very difficult to live in Kfar-Aza right now. And just to give you an idea, the elderly, the more elderly people are for sure coming back to Kfar-Aza. They say, that's what we know, that's our home, that's where we want to live. We're not starting life somewhere else. This is what we're going to do. This is where we belong. The youngsters who we were extremely worried about are saying, when can we go back? We really, not all of them, I'm generalizing, but and they're very, very passionate about them, and it's wonderful to see the work that they do with the elderly community. It's like they've teamed up together. The problem is the families with young children. They are, it's quite understandable, I think, from a security and a sense of security point of view. A lot of the kids, the children are really traumatized, and so we don't know about them, but we were really happy to see that large part of them are coming to Ruchama, which doesn't mean that they're going to then come to Kfar-Aza, but it's a step closer. And the most interesting thing is that in other kibbutzim in the area, in the Otef, that have been able to go back, there's a huge influx of families and young people who want to join the kibbutzim. Just like, if you remember, pre-October 7th, there was a 3-year wait for Kfar-Aza and for other kibbutzim. And we're already getting sort of inquiries saying, how can I join Kfar-Aza? How can I come? How can I become a member? And it's a very big...
Wow.
Yeah. Just one thing. So I think at the end of the day, I'm really, really optimistic that the area and the kibbutz will flourish again. I have to say that economically, the kibbutz is, from the point of the businesses and the livelihood that the kibbutz had before, it's still, there was a lot done, and we're still operating all of the businesses, which is good. So I'm very, very optimistic. I just have to say one thing. I don't know if people here realize this. The hostages issue for Kfar-Aza, but for the whole state of Israel, it's an iron weight that will not, nothing's going to be revived and relived as long as we have the hostages in Gaza, and it's very prevalent in every day and in everything that this community does. It's very much there every day.
And how can we help? Are there any needs that you can think of for the community right now?
We have the Keren Leshikum Kfar-Aza, the fund. I brought some postcards, and you can go in and read about it. I think first of all, we found that missions, to get the young people and the people to come and meet with communities all over Europe, North America, is very, very good for them. Emotionally and for the communities who have them. We have a whole bunch of projects that need to be taken care of. The government is not taking care of everything that is going to need taking care of in rebuilding Kfar-Aza and in building the new community in Ruchama. So there are a lot of projects, and if there is any interest, I can, provide additional information. Volunteer groups have started to come into Kfar-Aza to do work. First it was like cleaning and organizing and whatever, but now there's a big program going on for an area called the Green Floors. It's about 16, 17 houses that volunteers have been organized and come in, and they come for a few days and they actually help renovate and rebuild. So there's a lot. I would say that whatever somebody feels that it's in their ability or want to help, we can find, we have so many projects that we're raising money for and financing, and some of them are financial or to bring groups over here, but some of them are to rebuild specific things, specific items. So we can give a lot of information about that.
And I'll put out at Kiddush the postcards,
yes,
which has information on how you can help Kfar-Aza in the recovery. This was fascinating for me to talk to you, to meet you. To me, the main message one of the main messages I'll say I received from this morning's talk. You could leave at any time. This is a position that she's not bound to in any way, and you have been through what I think can't be described in any other way other than the worst atrocity and the worst leadership challenges that anyone could face imaginable. And it's a year and a half later, and you are still navigating this ship, going through all of the emotional turmoil of families who are rebuilding their lives after an atrocity. And to me, you represent the kind of Zionist spirit that inspires all of us. Your commitment, your dedication to remaining there. You're speaking on Parashat Noach. The whole lesson of Parashat Noach is all it takes is one guy. All it takes is one person, and one good person can save the whole world. So I feel that you're like a Noach in navigating your ship.
No.
Well, no, it's very inspiring.
A slight exaggeration, but thank you very much.
Sometimes God puts us in the places where we need to be. So 6 months before October the 7th, Hashem put you in the place you needed to be. And with all the sad stories that there are on October the 7th, today to me was also a happy story, because you get a chance to meet the kind of people, one kind of person, one particular person, who's going to save that country and is going to save Kfar-Aza and going to save the lives of many, many families. And to me, that's what Zionism is, right? Staying planted and firm and rooted, no matter which way the wind blows, maintaining the dream. So you are amazing. Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Daniel, thank you for turning 70 and sharing your birthday gift with us.
I just want to say thank you very much for your words. That's really, really kind. But you have to realize, obviously, I'm not doing any of this by myself. We put together a team, and we have other people that before October 7th would have never thought to come and do the jobs that they're doing now in the Kfar-Aza community, but they're there for shlichut, for Zionism, for help. And there's so much effort and work being done by a large group of people, many of them from Kfar-Aza itself, which is wonderful, like the phoenix, rising, and many of them from outside Kfar-Aza, so it's a big team effort. But thank you so much for inviting me today.
It's our honor.